The chart of accounts is the structured list of an organization's general ledger accounts. You can think of it as a wrapper for the list of main accounts to be used in a particular legal entity. Before you start creating the chart of accounts, it's a good idea to do some planning. To create a chart of accounts, the user should list accounts that group well together and group kinds of revenues, costs, and balance accounts. Things to consider before starting are: what degree of specification is needed? How should the chart of accounts be structured? Are external accountants available that are going to offer suggestions about the structure of the chart of accounts? Making sure that there is sufficient space so that in the future additional main accounts can be created between the existing main accounts, and deciding whether operating accounts must come before balance accounts or the other way around. It is common for large organizations to have the same chart of accounts used across multiple legal entities. It is possible to define company-specific data such as the default sales tax code on the main account. Also, you have the ability to inactivate financial dimension values for a specific company. The following entities or objects will have company-specific data: the main account and the dimension values. Let's talk about the components that make up the chart of accounts. Main accounts and financial dimensions are the core setups when creating a new chart of accounts. The main account, which is sometimes referred to as the natural account, is where all financial transactions are recorded. They are created from the chart of accounts form or the main accounts list page for a specific legal entity. Financial dimensions are not mandatory in AX. However, they are typically recommended to help further classify and report on your financial data. Once you have created the main accounts and financial dimensions, you can combine them into an account structure. This will define the sequence of segments for entering financial transactions, as well as defining any rules for allowed combinations. Keep in mind that the sequence of the segments may not be the same way you report on the dimensions. Advanced rules are another optional feature that allow you to create more granular rules for allowed combinations and for adding additional segments to a specified range of accounts or dimensions. After you have created the chart of accounts and account structures, which are all shared across all legal entities, you must link them to one or more ledgers, which allows you to then enter company-specific information on the main accounts and financial dimensions. The last component that we will discuss is the financial dimension sets. These allow you to combine all the dimensions together to create a reporting combination, and this is also how balances are stored in AX. Let's build a sample chart of accounts that we can build later in AX. I've decided to use a 4-digit main account. I've built some structure into my account numbers by organizing similar accounts into specific ranges. You can see in my example that the asset accounts will be in the range of 1,000 through 1,999, and liabilities are in the 2,000 through 2,999 range, and so on. Next, I have defined that I want to use 5 financial dimensions for departments, cost centers, customer groups, product lines, and a unit of measure. Because of the requirements for my dimensions and allowed combinations, I have decided to break the configuration into 3 account structures: one for balance sheet accounts, one for profit and loss accounts, and one for statistical accounts. Let's start by looking at the requirement for balance sheet accounts. I've placed a red X next to all of the dimensions on all balance sheet accounts, with the exception of the customer group on the liabilities. For my chart of accounts, I want to record customer balances by customer group. This is most easily achieved by using an advanced rule to add the extra dimension into the few accounts that need to record the customer group. However, this should be considered carefully because you cannot budget by a dimension that is only used in an advanced rule. The benefit would be that when creating entries into other balance sheet accounts, AX would not prompt the user for the customer group dimension, which is not valid. Next, let's look at the requirements for the profit and loss accounts. I've placed a green check mark next to all of the department and cost center dimensions because these two dimensions will be required on all profit and loss accounts. Blanks will not be allowed. You'll notice the customer group and unit of measure dimensions will not be used in profit and loss accounts at all, so I've placed a red X next to them. However, we do want to track the product line for all revenue and cost of goods sold accounts. Because my company does budget by this dimension, adding the dimension by using an advanced rule is not a good option. So I have two choices. I can add the dimension to the profit and loss account structure and allow the dimension to be blank, or force it to be a dummy value such as 000 for the 6,000 through 8,999 accounts. Or I can split the profit and loss account structure into two separate account structures, creating one for sales and COGS accounts and another for the expense accounts. The benefit to this approach is that the extra dimension is not available and the user is not prompted for the additional information. The downside could be that your account numbers are not a uniform length. I will demonstrate how to force the dimension to be 000 for the 6,000 through 8,999 accounts. In our last account structure, we will configure it to require departments and unit of measures, while the cost center will be allowed. However, we will allow it to be blank. The customer group and product line dimensions will not be included in this account structure. Next, I'll switch over to AX and show you how to create a new chart of accounts and link it to the ledger. Let's start out by creating a new chart of accounts, which is found in General Ledger, underneath Setup, Chart of Accounts, and then Chart of Accounts. I'll create a new chart, and I'll name it Contoso. For the description, I'll call it Contoso Training Sample. Based on the example that we discussed earlier, I want to make sure that my main accounts are 4 digits long, so I can type 4 pound signs into the main account mask field. If I wanted to, I could go ahead and begin creating new main accounts by clicking the New button. But I'll be showing you more details about creating main accounts in a later demonstration. First, I want to link this new chart of accounts to the GLSI company. So I'm going to switch the legal entity over to the GLSI company. Once I'm in the GLSI company, I can open the ledger form, which is found in the Setup folder of the General Ledger. Here, I can select the chart of accounts that I want to use. For my example, I'm going to link this to the Contoso chart of accounts that we just created. Later, we'll come back and update the account structures after we've created our account structures. Next, let's take a look at creating financial dimensions.